my thing that I go by now and what I'd say to other people is there is always going to be someone in the room that will learn from what you're saying, whether they're an architect with 10 years experience or they're getting started with Power Platform. Those different audiences are going to be in the room. So there is always someone that's going to learn.
Welcome to Power Platform Connections. My name is David Warner, and we're here to celebrate and highlight the amazing community contributors just like you, and take a look at all the amazing blogs and videos and articles that you've been creating over the last week. With me today is my co-host,
Hugo Bernier, and I am honored to get to introduce our guest today. Our guest is a business applications MVP and a Power Platform consultant. You may know him as Loco Lewis, but we know him as Lewis Baybutt. Lewis, welcome.
Hi, Hugo. Hi, David. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Pleasure. Absolutely. Why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself to the community?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm Lewis. I'm a Power Platform functional engineer at A&S Group. I also do a lot in the community. I'm a BizApps MVP. Some of you might know my blog, lowcodelewis.com. But yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So as always, we start with a little bit of the personal side of who our guests are. I want to do the same with you. I know you and I had actually communicated about this back when it happened, but one of the cool things that you got to do recently and you're a big fan of, I believe, is concerts. And you got to go see Adele in Vegas. So tell us a little bit about that, because I know there's plenty of Adele fans in the community.
I was kind of like, I mean, maybe like last year, towards the start of the year, I was like, it's never going to happen. I'm never actually going to get to see her live. Like, the tickets are way too expensive. It's sold out and she's not going to sell anymore. And then she did at one point and I jumped on it. And then at the start, well, sort of like early March, I ended up in Vegas seeing Adele at Caesar's Palace, which was really, really cool. And now it's just fingers crossed that she actually does a world tour or something like that, so I can get some cheaper tickets in a UK show or something.
Yeah, you probably spent quite a bit on travel in addition to the tickets, right? Obviously. So worth it. You give it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the favorite song that she sung live that you saw?
Definitely Rolling in the Deep. That's like my all-time favorite. Yeah.
I just literally had that on a few minutes ago. So that's
really?
Appropriate. Awesome. Very cool. Okay. So one of the other things that you said was in around favorite cars. You had mentioned Aston Martin. Now, I don't know, does that have anything to do with James Bond and you're British and all of that? But tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, like, I suppose, yeah, there's that background there. I haven't really watched loads of the James Bond stuff, but it's definitely a really iconic thing that links into that. But I honestly, it's just, I love that kind of like 2-seater car. I've got like a 2-seater myself, an Audi TT. And so it's kind of like a supercharged upgrade from that. But like, it's definitely a one day, hopefully, something like that. Yeah.
Awesome. And you had mentioned that specifically your car is convertible, right? Your Audi is a convertible. Yeah. So you had mentioned that the best way to end today is just put the top down and cruise. Do you have any favorite like paths or driving paths that you are like, all right, this is going to put me in a great mood. I know it. Putting the top down, getting on the road.
Oh, honestly, it's just like literally just get out of the house in the evening because I work from home. So it's like just to get, connect with nature, the world, just get out in my car, roof off, Adele on or something like that, and then go and see some friends. And yeah, that's a great way to spend the evening.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you really need to, right? Because I think when, at least for me, when COVID started and we knew we were going to be sheltering in place and not going anywhere, I was like, I've been doing this for years. But you got so stir crazy that it was like going to like Costco became like going to Disneyland, right? It was like an adventure. Yeah, I just got to get out of the house. Now, you also mentioned that the best way to start a day is with cooked breakfast. So what is your favorite meal? Now, I don't know if we've said it before on the show before. I don't think we have, but Hugo used to be a chef.
I don't think we mentioned that. I think this is the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, first time. So what's your favorite, like all-time favorite breakfast?
So definitely a full English breakfast. I must say I leave off stuff like black pudding, definitely not my thing, but like pork sausage, bacon, hash browns, eggs, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, 100%. Definitely.
You had me a bacon. Any suggestions? Any favorite flavors of that breakfast?
No, I agree with everything Lewis said except for the black pudding. I love the black pudding. It's a must-have, and the mushrooms and the tomatoes and everything else. Yeah. Can we take a break? I just need to go
it's
fix
lunchtime
myself
here.
a breakfast. Yeah.
Now, you obviously are getting a ton of experience in the community. You've been doing a lot. You're blogging, you're speaking, which is great. As Hugo had mentioned, you've got a nickname, Low Code Lewis. Tell us a little bit about how that started as we move into your journey in the community.
I think like December 2021, perhaps. I think it was literally Boxing Day, actually, that, 26th of December. And I just sat down and it was like, I'd started to get involved with the community a bit. I'd done the show with Don Osaka, that kind of stuff. But I hadn't really started contributing much yet and that kind of stuff. So I was like, 26th, okay, I'm going to start my blog this year. And I started it the day after Christmas, ready for the new year. And I was still in sixth form and, education at that point. So it was like on the side of that. But I was like, I need a catchy name and an easy to make logo, because I'm not a graphic designer or anything like that. So it's got to be easy to make and it's got to be catchy. And the fact that my name starts with an L and we work with low code, I thought, what better than Low Code Lewis? And the logo was then just so easy to make. I can just have a down arrow for low. I can have like a little code kind of icon and that's it. And then just write Lewis under it. It was, so really easy, but I hope it is kind of catchy.
Absolutely. Now, what was the biggest barrier for you to get started in the community?
Oh yeah, I mean, I suppose it's almost slightly difficult to think about, because now I'm just completely surrounded by community and it's so easy to tell people how to get involved.
Mhm.
But I would say that obviously I did less code, more power, and then it was like, well, what can I do next? And it was like there's all these awesome, crazy people that contribute and do so much, and it's like you wouldn't think that you could suddenly be like them like tomorrow. And then it's like, well, actually, you just start with a small point and start to get involved, start to have conversations, DM people on LinkedIn, tweet stuff, blog, go on the powerusers.microsoft.com site. And it's just those little things, I think, that then you start to gradually get more involved and more involved. But it's, definitely from those small little points that I just didn't quite realize to start with. And then suddenly, you start to realize it in the end.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that it's not their place, right? That they don't have a voice.
100%.
Did you ever go through that phase?
I would say that's definitely a thing for me for speaking, is that before, a little while ago, I would never think to, sign up and speak at like South Coast Summit, Scottish Summit, any of like the big events, that kind of thing. I mean, I've only just actually submitted this year my first session at Scottish Summit. I haven't spoken at South Coast in the UK before. So I've only actually really done two major conferences, which was Ignite last year and the London Automation Summit just this past weekend. So it wasn't something that I, dived into straight away and just thought, we can go and speak and do a session. That's crazy. Let's do it. But definitely like a bit of, I don't know if that's my thing. Will people learn from me? But I think my thing that I go by now and what I'd say to other people is, there is always going to be someone in the room that will learn from what you're saying, whether they're an architect with 10 years experience or they're getting started with Power Platform. Those different audiences are going to be in the room. So there is always someone that's going to learn. And even that architect with 10 years experience, they might have not done it that way before. So they might even learn as well. So there's always going to be someone.
All right. So do you want to just start hosting the show for us? Because that's exactly the message that we share as well. That'd be great. We're both like, yep. That's exactly what we tell people is your voice and the way you say and the way you explain it, even if it helps one person, you succeeded.
Yeah.
And that's really what, because a lot of people go, oh, there wasn't that many people in the room, or, oh, if I start a blog, who's going to read it? And it's like, well, technically, I remember starting my blog, no one read it because they didn't know about it. So you just keep blogging and keep sharing, like you said, on Twitter, and eventually others will pick it up on this. Remember, you could always hashtag Power Platform Connects. We'll share it. And it helps to just be consistent. So how have you felt that you have been supported by the community as you started? And if you've been supported? I mean, I know you have, but
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like it's such a welcoming community that anyone that gets started, it's like we always want to lift each other up and share people's content and stuff. Like I had a colleague the other day that started a blog and he's like saying to me, who's going to want to read this? Like other people might have done the same thing before. And I'm like, just do the thing and watch it happen. People will want to see this. And he posted on LinkedIn, and then he says to me, hey, but who's going to want to like come to this session that I'm thinking of submitting? And I'm like, I screenshotted the LinkedIn post of him starting his blog, and I'm like, here's the 106 people that like that first thing that you hadn't done before. And this is the community that will uplift others. And, you know, we all want new people to come in and start contributing. So there's no doubt that it's a welcoming community, and, you know, everyone's just eager for people to get involved.
Especially if you're never coming from a perspective of, look at me, I'm so smart, I know everything, and more like, hey, I want to share what I know, whether it's a lot or a little, I want to share with you. And people can't help but feel that passion, right? And they'll want to listen to you. So that's fantastic. Now, you work as a consultant, and so that means that you also work with customers. I would imagine you run into some challenges with customers. What's the biggest challenge that you see with customers adopting the Power Platform?
Okay, so my thing would probably be the people element in organizations. So taking like the thing that we've just been talking about for like the past 10, 15 minutes, community, it's a thing within organizations as well as, you know, everything that we're doing between organizations. And I would 100% say that one of the problems is that people approach Power Platform and they approach low code in a similar way to they approach just traditional development, by just trying to build that one app or that one solution. And it's probably actually what Chris spoke a bit about in his session. And it's some of the awesome stuff that they're driving at ANS. It's more about, for me, taking advantage of the entire platform that some people are actually paying for licenses for, and taking real advantage of those licenses, start to build entire solutions, and then move on to the next one and the one after that. But also start to empower those makers inside of your organizations and build those communities internally as well. I think those are the bits where organizations perhaps aren't approaching things from the get-go. And we do see people, you know, they just want to build that app or that one solution. And I think there's so much more than that. You know, take for like the Power Up program, for example, there's people career switching from, you know, accountancy and all sorts. It's so easy to get into, and there's all of that resource available. So yeah, definitely just going further than that, building that one app is the thing that, you know, sometimes isn't necessarily so easy.
Yeah, and what we're seeing often is organizations that are like, oh, we want to do this one project for everyone in the organization, but it's going to be too expensive for us to license for this one project. And then separately, you have another project, same thing, right? We don't want to incur the cost of this project. But if you step back and you look at, well, wait a minute, if you license everyone, this becomes a light up functionality that everyone can benefit from. So you have to look as a shared custom infrastructure as opposed to incurring the cost for on a project by project basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely that point of separating licensing cost from project. It's one licensing cost. Well, I suppose it depends how you license something.
Yeah.
But it's like it can be that one licensing cost for those 10 projects that you want to fulfill over the next 2-3 years, say. I mean, well, depending on the size, you could do 10 projects in like the next couple of weeks. You know, this is low code. What are we talking about?
So as a consultant, then you become very familiar with the term "it depends."
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I think that's almost maybe a catchphrase at this point.
Yeah, it's long and storied.
Yeah, I think if there's ever a doll made where you pull the string, you know, and it repeats the same things, that would be for me. It would be, it depends, always have something to deliver, and things like that. And I'm hungry, I guess. The 3 things I'd say all the time. So is there ever a kind of a demo that you do to customers or potential customers that just kind of blows their mind and they're like, oh my God, you know, we wish we had seen this before. Yes, you know, let's do what you want. Is there something, a feature or something that you demo like that?
100%. So I would definitely say it's the putting the maker ability into people's hands that haven't touched low code before and haven't touched Power Platform before. It's not the I'm going to build a really awesome complex solution that you can become an end user of, because that's software, right? We can go to loads of different vendors and just purchase software. So training people on software isn't something new, but putting that capability into their hands and saying, let me just do a demo on knocking up a SharePoint list and generating an app, generating a flow, and with a single button, building a Power BI report that analyzes all of that data for me. Or let me type into Copilot and generate an app that builds this awesome thing for me with just a sentence of 10 words. And that's the really key thing that gets people going, whoa, well, this is awesome. Like, I can do that straight away. And you told me in like 30 seconds. So yeah, definitely that.
Now, I remember when I was a consultant, there was always a token angry developer somewhere in the back of the room saying, I can write this myself. Yeah, he's right. Don't look, he's right next to you. There was always a token angry developer that would be like, I can write this myself. I can write it faster and things like that. And some developers feeling that they're with the Power Platform in an organization, that their role was diminished. And is that something that you run into, and what would you have to say to those developers?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that before, but I would 100% always try and flip it on its head. And I mean, like, Power Platform is and low code, it's definitely something that can completely be extended on with pro code. I mean, I'm not even sure if I remember the name of the event and the conference that Microsoft did recently for developers on low code. I don't know if you guys have it on the top of your head, but there's definitely that capability, in model-driven apps to extend with JavaScript, extend with coded plugins. There's all of that stuff available. We can build Power Pages sites and get into working with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So front-end developers, come over here. Like, this isn't just dragging and dropping rectangles and buttons. It's from that, and that's the easy part we get into, but it goes so much further. And I think that's where, front-end developers, full-stack developers, everyone using pro code can suddenly speed up their development and take advantage of low code while still taking advantage of all the knowledge that they've got over in that space.
Lewis, you had mentioned you got some events coming up. So what is the next event that you're going to be attending, and what are you going to be speaking on?
So I'll be speaking at Scottish Summit in Manchester this year. It's on tour this year. I think August is when it's happening. I might be wrong, but yeah, I think August. And I'll be speaking about how we can use something slightly different with deep links. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of content in the community, and I've done some myself on deep links before, but this will be about how we can actually start to use the mobile apps for Power Apps and Dynamics 365, even a native wrapped app on an iPhone or an Android device, and deep link into those apps on mobile for people that, say, work in the field or something like that. So it's taking deep links that aren't maybe so useful when we have to launch it in a web application and making it, an advantage for people that work in the field by using those mobile apps still.
That's exciting. Very, very cool stuff. We'll include the links to his session as well as the Scottish Summit links in the show notes as well for anybody who wants to check it out. Well, Lewis, thank you for taking the time to spend with us today. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to let the rest of the community get to know you a little bit, some of your personal side passions and your professional passions. We really appreciate you spending some time with us.
No, thank you guys so much for having me.
All right, everybody. Well, it's time for us to take a look at all the amazing work that you've been doing in the community, those articles, blogs, and videos. We want to take a look at them. Now, if you want us to include them on a future show, definitely just make sure you use the hashtag PowerPlatformConnects. Right there.
Easy, David. Right there.
It's right there. I know, right? It's weird because it's the opposite side of my room, right? So right there, and we will scour the interwebs for it. Make sure to include it on our shows. Hugo, what do you got for us this week?
We have a few articles this week, and let me get through them. Our first article is by Lewis Baybutt. That name sounds familiar. I'm not quite sure why, but Lewis has written an article called Route Planning in Power Apps. And in this post, he basically takes a look at how he can use the map control in a Canvas app or in custom pages to plan some routes between locations. And it's all done in low code. So the scenario here is, imagine that you want to use a number of waypoints in an application, and you wanted to calculate the route between the waypoints and then show how long it'll take to get between them. And that's basically what Lewis does in this article. So he talks about the configuration, right? One thing that we have to understand here is the controls that he's using are premium controls because they're powered by Azure Maps. But he configures the controls, then he shows how to display a route on a map. He shows how to calculate the duration of travel, and then how to display the travel distance in miles. And then finally, he's using a data source. He's putting the data in Dataverse to capture or to save the locations that he's using. That way, he's able to go back to it later, and he's able to actually show it in a gallery and do all sorts of cool things with it. It's a great article. And again, we love Lewis, but I definitely recommend you go take a look. Our next article is by Dennis Hudachbura, and he's talking about how to find flows using JMES path queries. And so sometimes it can be quite challenging to find, a specific flow. And if you don't know the exact flow, the exact name, or you don't have the details, it makes it really difficult to find this. So in this article, what Dennis does is he actually uses the M365 CLI, or the CLI for Microsoft 365, and he uses James Path queries to find Power Automate cloud flows. So then that came from a question by one of his viewers that was asking, is it possible to create a flow, run a script, and list all the flows across my entire Power tenant using an HTTP action? And he wants to show the flow names, HTTP request, and the URI the action it is currently using. So Dennis uses the CLI for Microsoft 365, which is something that I'm quite excited about. The CLI for Microsoft 365 allows you to connect to your Microsoft 365 tenant and your SharePoint framework projects on any platform. Doesn't matter if you're using Windows, Mac, or Linux, Bash, Commander, PowerShell, anything really. The CLI, which is a command line interface, you can use it to configure all your things Microsoft 365, SharePoint, and Power Platform. So one of the options here is that you can use a dash query option, which allows you to pass a James Path query. This is something that if you don't know about James Path query, I recommend you go take a look at Albert Janschott's article, where he explains all the concept. Here, Dennis uses the example to find the flows, and he's got great examples in his article on how to do that. So go take a look. We also have an article by Keith Atherton that shows how to use the Power Apps host object. The new host object is something that you can use in Power Apps to show information about the current running host or the current host running the app. And so that allows you to see things that you can use in formulas. For example, the browser user agent, the operating system type where the app is running, this globally unique identifier for the session ID, and the global unique identifier for the tenant ID. And so you can use that in your code, and this is something that Keith shows examples of how to use. You can find out how it can be useful, and you can use that information, for example, to provide more information to help support your application. So go take a look at this article and find out how Keith does that. Now, Michael Magel has a few articles this week, and they all kind of are connected together. The first one is building an intelligent assistant using OpenAI as a Canvas app. So Michael here uses Azure OpenAI to use the capabilities of OpenAI in a secure way. And so he had to create an Azure resource, and then he called an OpenAI REST API using HTTP, and he tested that HTTP request using VS Code. Then he set up his OpenAI custom connector, and he created his intelligent assistant Canvas app. And if you should go take a look at the article to see how cool the app is. And then finally, he was able to store the conversation in a collection and use a gallery to visualize the chat content. So that's something that allows him, again, to go back in history and see what the conversation looked like. And to Michael's credit, he says it was definitely something that was not complicated. Now, Michael continues to build on that in future articles, but we'll get back to his article in a few more posts. Kat Schneider was a guest at the End Insight IT, where she presented this session called Ready to Ditch Your Spreadsheets? Learn how Power BI can revolutionize your data analysis. And so this was a high-level overview of Power BI, and Kat was a great presenter of this. If you're interested in watching it, you go take a look at the URL that's provided here. Our next article is, again, back to Michael Magel. Now that Michael has built his AI assistant, he decided to improve it by making it a PCF control. And so in this article called Intelligent Assistant Improved with PCF, he shows you how to set up and build the assistant and then use it in a PCF control, or that's a code component. And so he was able to take all the code that he needs and put it inside of a control that he had already built before. His intelligent assistant replies answers using Markdown language, and Michael had already built a PCF control that allowed to use Markdown. So in this article, really what Michael is doing is he's taking his Markdown viewer as a code component, and then he kind of plugs in his intelligent assistant code to render the Markdown, and then he views the Markdown in his PCF control. Now, the cool thing about that is the intelligent assistant uses and displays OpenAI content correctly, and that's all done using Markdown control. And he shares his source code in the article, and it's even available on GitHub. And again, it's a convenient one-click option to provide the content in the article. In fact, here's an example of what it looks like. You can take a look at the Markdown viewer as code component, and I think you'll find out it's very cool. Now, again, Michael will build a little bit further with this, and we'll get back to it in another post. Before that, Reshmi Aklu has talked about a new template that is provided, Get Feed with Instagram Basic Display. Reshmi had created an Instagram Basic Display connector a few weeks ago, and so now she's actually using a Power Automate flow that is published and deployed in all regions. And you can actually use that template in your Power Automate in the homepage. Michael Magel comes back. Again, the third part in his series of articles is now using his PCF control in a Dataverse for Microsoft Teams application. So again, Michael created his Microsoft AI-powered intelligent assistant. He converted it to a PCF control, and now he's actually showing how to embed the control inside of a Dataverse for Teams application. Now, Michael is using the material design component library for Power Apps, which is something that was created by Louisa Fries and Robin Rosengrun. So thank you, Louisa and Robin. And then Michael uses the material design component library for Power Apps, embeds his PCF controls, and then he talks about some of the gotchas of importing the PCF control, enabling a Power App component framework within Dataverse for Teams. And then he's got a hidden setting that he needs to change. And he wonders, is this something that's supported, or is it something that you should do? As a general rule, if you want to know if it's supported or not, if an API is documented, it should usually be supported unless explicitly stated. If the API is not documented, as a general rule, Microsoft reserves the right to change the API, and that's why it's not documented, and therefore it would not be supported. Doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means that if you run into problems, you can't really ask for Microsoft to support you on that. So this is something that our friend Michael does. He calls an API to be able to publish his app, and it looks very cool. Keith Atherton comes back with another really cool article, which is Get Licensing Ready. It's a website that is available for Microsoft products, and we all know that Microsoft products like Azure and Power Platform have a variety of licensing options, and that's being nice to say it that way. The Get Licensing Ready website, it provides a lot of material that allows you to learn all the various licenses, and in fact, it allows you to take exams and earn certifications for free. So each category contains one or more courses. For example, in the Microsoft products category, you have licensing specialist for Dynamics 365 and licensing specialist for Power Platform. And then each course itself contains one or more modules. So for example, the licensing specialist for Power Platform course contains the modules for licensing for Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agent. Again, he provides more information here, including links on how to get started. And don't forget to take advantage of the certification exam vouchers after taking the course. And that's something I should probably consider looking into. Rishmi Aklu comes back with another article, add or update image columns in SharePoint with Power Automate to download and use images from the web. In the past, Ganesh Sanap had written an article on how to update images in a SharePoint or Microsoft List image column using Power Automate. So he provides a guide again on how to do that, and what Rishmi does really is extend that sample by showing how you can actually go and focus on downloading the image from a URL from the internet and then storing that in an image column using the code sample that Ganesh had provided. So Rishmi walks through creating the list, marking as an asset library using the PnP PowerShell, how to create the Power Automate flow to call, make an HTTP request, and then save the image column. It's a great article, and again, Rishmi always writes really great article. I would recommend you go take a look at it. Craig White has written an article called Power Platform Solutions. And I'd like to thank Chris Huntingford for pointing out this article. What Craig White is doing is talking about Power Platform Solutions. What are they? Why are they important? How to create them. And for those of you who are new to the Power Platform Solutions, what Craig says, think of them as a digital rucksack or a backpack, right? You can throw loads of stuff in it. You can zip it up and take it somewhere else. And that's really what solutions are about. They can store all sorts of assets, apps, flows, tables, variables, security roles, and so on. And then you can move them between environments. It's worth noting that Power Platform Solutions are not a premium feature. Components within the solutions might be. For example, if you're using a flow that uses a premium connector, but to create a solution, you simply need an environment with a provisioned database, and that includes developer environments. So what Craig talks about also is the difference between managed and unmanaged solutions, talks about the publisher, talks about how to create a solution, how to add assets, and my favorite part of this article is the stuff that Craig wishes he knew when he got started. So go take a look at this article. Also, Craig has another article on environments. So if you're interested in this topic, go take a look. And that's it for this week.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you again for tuning in. Thank you, Lewis, for spending some time with us today. And thank you all for sharing your articles, blogs, and videos and all that hard work that you do for our community. Now, again, if you would like us to include your articles, blogs, or videos in the content that you're creating, make sure that you hashtag Power Platform Connects on your Twitter and LinkedIn posts, and we will absolutely look for it and make sure that it's included. Now, there's another thing that you could do to get involved in the community. Hugo, tell us about it.
You can go to aka.ms/join the community to join the community and become a power user and participate in discussions about the Power Platform. You can ask questions, you can answer questions, and who knows, you might even become a super user and get celebrated as someone who contributes more than most people. And we can't wait to see you in the community. And
awesome.
By the way,
was that
congratulations,
join
David.
the community?
Yeah,
or join
I was going to say, you pointed in the right direction.
I did, yeah. Join the community? Yep. Awesome. All right, thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Welcome to Power Platform Connections, where we get your Apple devices connected. I think I'm going through a canyon. All right.
Boy, that was a lot of articles to cover.
Save it for the real show.
Where do you go?
Save it out. And we're wrapping up now, Daniel. Is that sufficient?